Hello everyone and welcome back to Age of Nagash, which is a channel dedicated to Age of Sigmar. And in this video we are going to be talking about more Ogor Mawtribes as they have won the poll for the next Y place. That is going to be Ogor Mawtribes and then in particular the Winterbite Mawtribe. And this is going to be an interesting one because as far as I'm aware, this is the least popular one in terms of gameplay reasons. And it's nice to see that all of you guys, or most of you guys, are voting for me to do this by play because I'm always up for a challenge. And I do tend to review certain armies or certain sub-allegiances that not a lot of other people do because they don't want to give them the time of day. And what I will say about the Winterbite Mawtribe is when I did a quick YouTube search, if I have forgotten someone, I do apologise, but I didn't see anything on a dedicated video just for the Winterbite Mawtribe in terms of tactics, not a battle report, but in terms of a review of its rules. So I will be the first, as far as I'm aware, and I'm not going to lie to you guys, it's not going to be the most competitive one. I'm just going to tell you that now rather than saving that to the end of the video. But the point of this video, we're going to see what we can do with them to try and get the most out of them. And what I'd also like to say, if there's anything you disagree with what I have said in this video and you think I'm wrong, there's something else you can do here or here, please let me know that down below in the comments. As like I've said before, I don't actually play Ogor Mawtribes. I'm a big fan of them, but I don't actually play them. So if you're an experienced player and you have something to say that I haven't already, please put it down in the comments, as we're all here to learn at the end of the day and we'll all benefit from your experience. Okay, so before we get started, I do just want to do a quick shout out to my fantastic and lovely Patreons, as because of them, they give me the reason why I can justify putting this much time into the channel. So starting off with my biggest patrons, that's going to be my Morgasts, which are Sandback and Johnathan H and Filq and Bleed Red. Thank you for your support, guys. My vampires as well, of course, which is Mir, Martin S, Rouse321 and David A, and my Necromancers, which is Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Dice Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Quad, Cranky Wombat, Christopher F and Christopher C and Ronni H. Guys, thank you so much for your continued support. So on with the video. And what I will say, if you haven't seen a Y play video that I've done before, essentially what we're going to do in this video is talk about the strengths and weaknesses of this army or sub-allegiance in this case, and talk about the strengths off the table and on the table, as it's always important to talk about off because that's like the hobby aspect and you're going to be building and painting. A lot of time put into that aspect, so you want to make sure you're going to be building and painting something you actually enjoy. And on the table, of course, you know, tactics, gameplay, all that sort of thing. And then we'll talk about the weaknesses off the table and on the table as well. And hopefully the idea is by the end of the video, you'll realise that this is a sub-allegiance for you, or maybe it's not for you, and you would rather do something else. Or if you've already got like a Winterbite Mawtribe theme ready to be built and painted essentially, then hopefully this will give you the motivation to do it. Also, the nice thing about it being an actual sub-allegiance is that you probably already own these models and stuff maybe already, so there's not going to be too much of a commitment you have to make if you want to try it out. What I will say is I have already done a why play Ogor Mawtribes video, so if you're still a bit unsure if it's actual Mawtribes you should play, go check out that video, as that'll give you a better overall feeling before going into this one. So anyway, the first thing I want to start with is talking about the lore for the Winterbite Mawtribe. So, most mysterious of all the Mawtribes, the Winterbites stray close to the icy grasp of the Everwinter, so that a snowstorm hide them from their quarry until the last moment. They strike from this shroud of blinding white with sudden and terrifying brutality, sending forth packs of winter beasts to tear apart their prey. Unlike the majority of the Beastclaw-led Mawtribes, who stay as far ahead of the Everwinter as possible, the Winterbite rely on it to mask their movement and conceal them from their prey. To do so, they roam dangerously close to the swirling blizzard of the supernatural storm, waiting for the mist to descend upon their prey before setting packs of yetis and frost sabers upon them. In order to tread this hazardous line and avoid becoming trapped in a frozen oblivion, the Mawtribe relies upon its icebrow hunters, expert trackers, who maintain a primal connection with monstrous creatures of the Everwinter. These imposing warriors are held in great regard by the Mawtribe and sometimes even command their own raids, calling themselves the Freya in their own tongue. The Winterbite are a mysterious breed. Even their fellow ogres find them more than a little odd, not least because they tend to pick at their food with a series of swift ambushes rather than simply overwhelm and devour their prey in a single gluttonous festival of slaughter. And that is some lore for the Winterbite Mawtribes. What I like about them is they are very much a sort of like sneaky ambush tactic, which you think for ogres being sneaky, that's a bit weird, but it's because they play so much on that Everwinter theme. And what I like about it is that compared to the other Beastclaw Raider Ogre Mawtribes, who obviously, try and get as far away from the Everwinter as possible, what these guys are doing are really relying on it. So when they come across other civilizations, let's say, even if it's like a mighty fortress or a town or something like that, and these people, these towns, or these soldiers defending these battlements, they'll probably see this as an incredibly nasty storm coming their way of, just this massive blizzard of freezing temperature, everything like that. If they're not used to anything like this before, they may just, batten up the hatches, basically not be completely on top form, prepping for a massive enemy assault. They just think this is really bad weather heading their way. They have to make preparations, they have to store food, they have to try and protect the people. Maybe that's a case of not having as many people on the battlements to watch because they don't want them to freeze to death. So they're not at their most defensible level. And then that is when they get hit by this brutality of what is the Winterbite Mawtribe. And that's if you're looking from if they're assaulting a settlement or something like that, or a bastion like we mentioned. But if it was some caravans going through a forest or something, they really can't see anything because they're so deep in the Everwinter that practically the people on this caravan are almost freezing to death. And then suddenly, before they know it, a Yeti will come out and just smash one of the horses aside. And then you have Frost Sabers come out and start ripping the infantry to pieces. And then obviously the rest of the ogres will follow. And it's just that sort of sneaky ambush tactics. Something I would compare it to, and it's not exactly the same, but if you've seen Stephen King's The Mist, well, obviously got this such thick mist in front of you can't see. Imagine that, but with a winter blizzard, where again, incredibly nasty creatures lurk within it, and you can't even see your hand if you put it in front of you. How the hell are you meant to stand a chance against that? So that is what I really like. I think it's really cool, really fun, and just plays on a different type of thematic feel for the Ogre Mawtribes rather than just all feeling quite the same. Like when we covered why play Thunderbellies, that their Everwinter completely changed the rules by making it a thunderstorm. So you can see how they've really massively delved into the Everwinter and massively use it to their advantage, the Winterbite Mawtribe does. Okay, so now that we've talked a bit about their lore, and this should be enough to give you a good understanding of what they're like, I want to now talk about the strengths of this army off the table. So the first thing I want to say is the Ogre Mawtribe model range. You have got some really fun looking models in that, lots of big beasties and everything else, which again, if you're going more on the Beastclaw Raider side, that is where all the beasties are. So you've got that. I would say it's also a very sort of fun and fairly easy army to paint. I mean, it really depends on how you want to go, but if you want to just get an army painted fairly quickly, especially with the Winterbite, there's a lot of dry brushing and there's a lot of contrast work you can do. And you may look at Ogre Mawtribes and think, God, that is a lot of flesh to paint. I don't know how I feel about painting flesh. Maybe, I don't feel like I'm there on my skill level or something. Honestly, unless you're going for really well painted, you just use contrast, and then you can even dry brush the flesh up if you want, because ogres are quite grubby creatures, aren't they? They're not, sparkly clean. They don't wash every day. If they do, fair enough, that's how you themed your army, but most of them don't. So if you put, contrast on them, and that's how you do the flesh. I've done that before when I did a test one, and yeah, they looked like there maybe was a couple of little brown speckles on him and stuff after. However, they were just freckles, they were just moles. It doesn't really matter. These guys are fine, or it could just be dirt, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about that. You can also do albino skin as well, because if you're going for that really sort of cold Winterbite look and you've got ogres in your army, you might want to go for that really sort of pale skin, which could look really cool, almost like Frostbite. And for the beasts and stuff for the army, where they've got thick fur and stuff, you can just easily do that with a dry brush. build up the colour. That's how you can do it there. So I think on the painting side, they can be really good. If you want to take your things to the next level, of course, you can spend ages painting the skin. You can do tattoos on it. You can really have good fun with it. So now talking about the weaknesses off the table, as we are honest here, we're not just going to talk about the only positives and the strengths. Talking about the weaknesses, it's not the newest model range. It's actually one of the model ranges out there that haven't actually received any Age of Sigmar models, if you don't include the Underworld warband that came out for it, which is quite nice, and you get like a nice frost saber in it as an example, and a particular Icebrow hunter if you wanted to use it like that, so that kit could be good for you. But that sort of ties into the other problem where the units you are going to want to capitalize, maybe how the Winterbite is designed, is going to be your Icefell Yetis, which look ancient. I'm really not a fan of them. I think they look really old. I don't like them. And then you've got the Frost Sabers, which again, they're okay, but they're quite monopose and they're not very good, and I believe they're resin. Again, you can get the Underworld Warband, but you only get one, so it's not really an example. And then the Icebrow Yetis, like I said, not really a fan of them, and it kind of really pushes you down this street. What I would say though is on this channel, we're not completely dedicated to Games Workshop. You can always just go get them from another model company or convert your own. Like for example, something that I would maybe do is use the new Troggoth kit we've got for the Gloomspite Gits, convert that up into Yetis. That shouldn't be too hard to do. So you can do things like that to get around it. But apart from the Yetis are the main ones, I know I've mentioned it 3 times now. But the other stuff I think's okay. Like the other ogres, I think they stand up. Yeah, like you're gonna go through a lot of mold lines trying to clean them up and all that sort of thing. But I think they stand for most of the part. It's also not the biggest model range. It's not the smallest by any stretch of the imagination. But it's not, you know, your Stormcast or your Seraphon or your Skaven or anything like that. But you know, those armies are far and few between at the end of the day. So now moving about the strengths and weaknesses on the table, and how I'm going to do this one in this video is I'm actually going to read through the sub-allegiance abilities we have for the Winterbite and Mawtribe. You should hopefully be able to see them on the screen now. Apologies, the photo is taken with just my iPhone, so if the quality is not great, don't worry, I will be reading it all out to you, and then I'll give you my thoughts on it as we read it. So, the first thing you're going to get for your generic ability, as you tend to do with sub-allegiances, is Ghost in the Blizzard. So, the tribes of the Winterbite remain masked by the shroud of the Everwinter's snowstorms until the moment that they strike. Subtract 1 from the hit rolls for attacks made with missile weapons that target friendly Winterbite units that are wholly within your territory. So I personally think that this is actually a really nice ability. It's great. Shooting's coming back very heavy in the meta. It was very strong, then it went away, and now it's making a solid return. I've had my Archaon shot off by more than enough of the sneaky ladies with the bows than I can count in the last few days. But what I would say is that this is good. There is going to be a caveat to this though, because it says in your territory. Now, some battle plans, if you look at them, if you're wondering what a battle plan is, just first off, just quickly, if you're quite new, essentially like missions you play Age of Sigmar with. So if you look at the battle plan, it tells you the layout of the table in each person's territory. Something I kind of automatically think is like, oh, your territory is just half the table and the enemy has half the table. It's not. Sometimes it is. Probably the majority of the times it is, or at least half the times, but sometimes it's not. It may only be a quarter of the board, may only be a third of the board or something. So it's worth taking note of what is your territory. As for example, if you're playing shifting objectives, I believe it is, then your territory is really small in that, so it's not going to be as useful to you. But overall, it will be pretty useful, and it's nice. I was thinking like maybe it should be like just your whole army-wide, but I suppose that would be quite, maybe a bit too powerful. I mean, the Winterbite could do with that, to be honest with you, but no, that's not too bad. That's a good ability. Sometimes these abilities are awful, so no, that is a good one. And then you also get Call the Endless Wight. So Winterbite shamans can call upon the icy mists of the Everwinter, summoning the hideous creatures that dwell within. So add 1 to the prayer rolls for Call of the Blizzard when a Winterbite priest is chanting that prayer. And just in case you're wondering who exactly are going to be my priests in this army, as far as I'm aware, it's just going to be the Huskard on a Thunder Tusk. But the Call of the Wizard prayer is, this prayer is answered on a 4+, obviously within Winterbite it's going to be a 3+, you get that +1 to it. If this prayer is answered, pick 1 friendly unit of Icefell Yetis within 18 inches of the model chanting this prayer that is visible to them. You can return a 1 slain model to that unit. So I think that's pretty cool. It's a huge range, right? So then moving on to the commandability of the Winterbite, which is Howl of the Wild. Unleashing a blood-chilling cry, the warlord sends their winter beast forth to kill and to feed. You can use this command ability at the start of the combat phase. If you do so, pick one Winterbite hero, friendly Winterbite Frost Saber unit, and Winterbite Icefell Yeti unit. Who within 12 inches of the Winterbite hero can fight at the start of the combat phase. These units cannot fight again in that combat phase unless an ability or spell allows them to fight more than once. So that's good. So that's, your way to fight first mechanic you've got in the army. There's another way to do it, which we'll get to later, but no, that is good because I can tell you, your Frost Sabers and your Icefall Yetis have not got good saves, so they definitely want to be the ones who are hitting first. And then going on to the command trait you get for this, Winterbite General must have this command trait instead of one listed on pages 72 to 73 on the battle tome, and this is Winter Touch. So this warlord bears the frostbitten mark of the Everwinter, and supernatural monsters of the great snowstorm flock to their side. And what it's actually going to do in game is add one to the wound rolls for attacks made with melee weapons by friendly Winterbite Frost Sabers units and Winterbite Icefall Yeti units while they are wholly within 12 inches of this general. So that's good. Obviously getting +1 to wound is fantastic. It's quite hard to get +1 to wound in this game in general, and there are not many abilities out there or spells etc that make you minuses to wound compared to how many there are out there that make you minuses to hit. Then the artifact of power you get is the first Winterbite hero to receive an artifact of power and must be given the Frost Fang. So the Frost Fang, found deep within the Ogor Mawtribes caverns of the Eastern Gur, this ancient weapon takes the form of an oversized Yeti Fang, which is pick one of the bearer's melee weapons at the start of each battle round. Roll a dice on a 5+, add 1 to the damage inflicted by attacks made with that weapon for the rest of the battle. This effect is cumulative, so it will keep on going, and that's, it's on a 5+ right, which is the problem, but you get to add 1 to the damage. So if you get lucky with a dice, you can really stack up that damage, especially if it's like on a Frostlord on Thunder Tusk as an example. So now that we've actually read through those abilities, what are my overall thoughts on the Winterbite Mawtribe? So the problem I think you have is that it really tries to get you to build into Icefall Yetis, and I think the problem they have is that they're simply not the best unit in this book at all, because one of the big things they suffer from is they don't have that Ogre keyword. If you look at their keywords, it does say Ogre Mawtribes, but that is the allegiance, not their actual keyword. They don't have the Ogre bit, so they're not going to get +2 to their movement, they're not going to do damage on the charge, they're not going to get any pluses to their bravery when they're in combat, and it just kind of feels like they suffer from not getting a lot of the other benefits that some Ogre units would do because they're lacking that keyword. Also, they have that 6+ save, which is really not great, and the fact that their damage is 2, it makes them not really any better on the damage department compared to other Ogres. Yes, again, they are hitting on 4s and wounding on 3s -1 rend with 3 attacks each, which is good. Not every Ogre is as good as that, but realistically that's just because they're missing the rend. Apart from the rend things, the Ogres, I think most of them hit on 3s anyway. So you've got that problem. The good thing what you can say about the Icefall Yetis is you can actually give them +2 to wound by using a prayer, or you can actually give them +1 to wound from the Winterbite Allegiance abilities, which we just talked about, but that means then they're wounded on 1s, and 1s do always fail, so it would be nice if one of those things were +1 to hit, then it would have been hit on 3s, wounded on 2s, and it would have just made a more interesting conversation. These guys can be very fast. Their standard movement is 9. They can run and charge if when they make the charge roll, they are wholly within 16 inches of a friendly Thunder Tusk, so they can be quite fast, and then they have actually got bound-in leaps that allows them to pile into combat from 6 inches away rather than just the 3 inches. So they have got that sort of way to fight first as well. And then when you go into combat, you've got that Commandability from Winterbite to make them fight first. So it really sort of helps to reduce the amount of damage they could take. And they are going to be -1 to hit from enemy melee weapons. So they're also that -1 to hit from shooting, like we mentioned, if you're from your own territory. So with that 6+ save, they can be surprisingly resilient, but that 6+ save is still going to be their massive downfall. Yes, you can turn 1 slain model, but that's only on a prayer on a 3+. It's not guaranteed. And then with their fairly low bravery, it can be quite difficult to keep them alive on the battlefield. But what I will say, as I've already mentioned, is that When you're moving them up the board, you've got, if you fail your charge but you're still within 6 inches of the enemy, can be sometimes best not to make that charge roll, because then you can do your piling, and also that means that the enemy won't be able to hit you first unless you happen to be going against something like Sisters of Slaughter or someone else who has a similar piling 6-inch mechanic. And then when you're already in combat and you survive the initial hit back the enemy does to you, then you can go, right, I'm going to fight first when I'm bogged down in combat, because you've got that commandability. So it does help around that. I just really feel like Yetis are sadly not the best thing to take in this book. But when I review things on this channel, I do tend to look at it as a competitive side. If you're not really too bothered and you just want to have a laugh with your mates, or you're not going to go to any like sort of like real competitive events, then you can take them and see how you do them. But just from a really competitive scale, they're not going to be worth taking. And when the whole sub-allegiance is mainly based around them, and Sabertusk we'll get to in a moment, it kind of makes it quite annoying, as it's just quite counterproductive. Something I do want to note though about the Beastclaw Raider stuff, as the Icefell Yetis do have that, is that they have the Grasp of the Everwinter, which is part of the Allegiance ability, which is at the start of your hero phase, roll 1 dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of any friendly Beastclaw Raider units. If the roll is equal to or less than the number of current battle rounds, that unit suffers D3 mortal wounds. So obviously on your first battle round, if you happen to be in range of the enemy at that point, it's only going to be on a 1, but on your second one, it's going to be on a 2 or 1. Third battle round, 3 or 1, you can see how it keeps going. So there can be a way for you to do more damage to the enemy as well outside of the combat phase. What I will also say is that you can tie that with the battalion, which is kind of, it's not like it's made for your Yetis, but it can include them, and then you can kind of, it's another way to do mortal wounds, and that is going to be from your Torbad. Again, apologies that's pronounced wrong, but I think it's right, which is going to have 1 Huskard on Thundertusk, which you want because that's going to be doing your prayer, and then you can have 3 to 9 Thundertusk Beast Riders, which is obviously good as well, but it is like something different, and Beast Riders can be a bit better on a Stonehorn, I do think. And then you can have 0 to 3 units for Icefall Yetis. And I do feel like the Yetis in this is a bit of an afterthought, but what the abilities of this battalion allows you to do is the Heat, Numbing, Chill. So at the start of your hero phase, roll 1 dice for each enemy unit within 3 inches of any units from this battalion. On a 2+, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Not the best ability, but you can stack it with the Beastclaw Raiders ability they get from their allegiance to try and maximize mortal wound output, but it's not fantastic. But I just thought it's a way to include Yetis to just try and get them to do something else extra. And then the other thing to talk about, which this kind of capitalizes on for the Winterbite Mawtribe, is going to be the Frost Sabers. So the Frost Sabers are the kitty cats, like I've mentioned before, and they're not fantastic, but they're not terrible. And the reason why they're not terrible is so you can deep strike them in with the Icebrow Hunter to come in from the board edge. You can buff their charges, so when they come on, they'll probably charge. And on the attacks, their standard 1-inch range, 3 attacks, force to hit, freeze to wound, -1 rend, 1 damage. It can be alright. To be honest, it's exactly the same as the Icefall Yetis, apart from it's 1 damage instead of 2. But these guys are cheaper, so you're just throwing more dice at the enemy, and you can actually deep strike these guys in. Now, I don't want to say that Frost Sabers are better than Yetis, but they don't really seem to be much worse. If I'm honest, you can use the Commandability, Lead and Skull from the Icebrow Hunter, which allows them to get an extra attack as well. So they can be not awful. And again, if you disagree with me there, you put it in the comments. But from what I'm seeing here, Frost Sabers are nearly as good as Icefall Yetis, or Icefall Yetis are nearly as good as Frost Sabers, which I think is really comes home to the point, well, where is the problem in this? That the little cats are potentially better than the Icefall Yetis. Now, if you want to prove me wrong on that, please put it down in the comments down below. So I'd generally love to hear it, because I want to make the Yetis better. But I think the problem is that I'm struggling to do it myself. But what I do want to say is maybe not just look at the Winterbite as it has to be for if you're taking Yetis or you're taking the Sabers. Maybe it could generally be useful just for standard ogres. The problem is there though, you're not going to benefit from the command ability, and you're not going to benefit from the command trait. So those will be taxes if you're not going to take those units. But you could still make use of the subtract 1 from enemy hit rolls in your territory. Could be really useful. The artifact is okay. I mean, obviously if you're lucky on getting those 5s up to keep adding that damage to you, can be great on Stonehorn with a Frost Lord on top, obviously. And yeah, you're not benefiting really from the Call of the Endless White at all as well if you're not taking Yetis. So I'm not really too sure. With this one, I personally believe that the Winterbite Mawtribe is the weakest sub-allegiance in the book. But this is all coming from a competitive mindset, like I have mentioned before. So if you're not playing in a super competitive setting, you're not going against Fangs of Sotek, you're not going against some Zeech and Deepkin and some Daughters of Cain lists out there, etc., then it's absolutely fine. You've got nothing to worry about. Something I would say, and this is something I'm going to say with a lot of armies, is if you've got Tabletop Simulator on your computer, again, not affiliated with them, I just love the game, you can use the models on that to simulate using Yetis and see how it works, or go through tactics, because this is not as straightforward as one to play. You have to be very careful on how you use your units, but also if things are back to normal in the world and you can play in real life, just proxy some models and stuff and see, you know, I want to take some Yetis. Again, I think the models are pretty goddamn awful for the Yetis, but what I would say is that you can just convert up those trolls like I mentioned. You've got Crypt Horrors you could do. There's loads. And if you do like those Yeti models, that's absolutely fair enough. I really like the old Direwolf models that we currently have, and some people say that they look absolutely shite. So, you know, my point of view is not always the popular one. But what I will say with that, guys, is I think I'm going to come to an end talking about the Winterbite Mawtribe. Like I said, it was a bit of a challenge in this one to try and talk really positively about it in the strengths of the army. I do think it has some strengths. It's not completely useless, but like I said, it's harder to play. And when things are a bit harder to play, people tend to like to go for the easier option in general, and then that's why people will shut something down. So I'll leave that with you. And if you've got anything you would like to add to the conversation, please put it in the comments down below, and I'll be very happy to hear it. I'm sure a lot of people thinking about playing a Winterbite Mawtribe will be happy as well. And also what I'd like to say is that this is officially the first full faction focus of the Winterbite Mawtribe on YouTube, right? Okay, so we finally got it. Winterbite got a video. Yes, get it in. So I hope that you've enjoyed this review. It's been fun looking at units that aren't always the most popular ones as well, because I always think it's, like I said, I like the challenge to try and make something work. And also, if you can make Winterbite work as an example, and I'm sure that there are players out there who already have maybe made it work, then you're playing an army that's a bit harder to play, and when you win your games, it's even more worth it. It's the same when I was talking about Beast of Chaos and some Sylvaneth, etc, etc, etc. And what I'd also like to say is, if you're still wondering if you should play Ogor Mawtribes, like I said, check out that Why Play Ogor Mawtribes video I did if you haven't already. And if you're thinking about a particular Beast's Claw Raider sort of themed one, check out the Thunderbellies video I did not so long ago. It was great fun that. I love the Mournfang as well. I think they're a really cool looking model, and I think they're really good and fun in the game. And I actually got pretty hard hit by a bunch of the Mournfang pack in a tournament I did last weekend. It was good fun though. It's a cool thing to be killed by, right? So yeah, go check that out. But what I'd like to say as well, if you did enjoy this video, please smash that like, subscribe and bell notification button. Essentially, they really help out the channel, absolutely free to do so. And it shows to me that you guys are enjoying Ogor Mawtribes. It's like I say, I always aim my content towards what is more popular with you guys, because at the end of the day, I make these videos for you guys. So whatever tends to get the most likes and popular and all that sort of thing, I will make more of. So please show me that in the likes. Obviously, if you didn't enjoy this video, please let me know down in the comments why, and I can try and improve on next time. What I'd also like to say is I want to do a massive shout out to my patrons again, as it is thanks to these absolute legends why I can continue this channel and try and help as many people of Age of Sigmar and getting the most out of their games as possible. So that's going to be my Morgasts, which are Sandback, Johnathan H, Filq and Bleed Red. Guys, like I said, that tier, you're giving so much support. Please keep it up. It's really keeping me going. And then my vampires, which do a great job as well, which is Mir, Martin S, Rouse321 and David A. Again, guys, fantastic job there. And then with Necromancers, which is Jacq.l, RadiationRiley, AW77, Die Sagas, WolfNick, Michal W, Quad, Cranky Wombat, Christopher F, Christopher C, and Ronni H. Guys, thank you for your continued support. Really means the world to me. So what I'd also like to say is, if you guys would like to support the channel a step further, please consider becoming a patron. There'll be a link to my Patreon in the top of the description down below. Even if you just click on it and check it out, and even if you just consider giving $1 a month to the channel, it really goes towards keeping the channel going and basically allows me to justify the amount of time I spend on making these videos. So if you'd like to do that, I'll be really grateful. If you can't, no worries. And if you did enjoy the video, like I said, like, subscribe and bell notification, and let me know your thoughts down in the comments. All free to do so, and I enjoy every single one of them. So with that, guys, I want to say thank you very much for watching this video. It's been very cool covering ogres. I think that they're an army that maybe does not get as much love as some other armies. So I'm always happy and joyful to make content for them, particularly when it's things like this Winterbite that, like I said, is a challenge. No one else has really done it, so I was interested in trying to tackle that on. And I really hope that essentially by the end of this video that you guys have realised if it's something that you would think would be quite fun in trial, or you go, actually it's not for me, I want to do something else. Hopefully I've just helped you guys out making that decision. So like I say guys, until next time, thank you very much for watching this. Remember to stay safe, wash your hands, stay hygienic and wear a mask for God's sake, so we can all start gaming again sometime soon in a very ogre fashion. And also remember, until next time, more importantly, that Nagash is all, and all is one in Nagash.